It is Saturday night data party. This week, looking at Transformers. So not the toys. Did a fun webinar with the folks at Market Muse this past week, and the topic was natural language processing. And one of the things that has been of interest to me for a while now is summarization. How do we summarize in a way that is useful, a bunch of text, so that we can get outputs that are usable? And so I wanted to play with that this week. So we're going to use Google Collab here. Let's go ahead and load our transformers. This may take some time. Summarization can be boiled down into two categories, right? There is extractive and abstractive summarization. Extractive means that you cherry pick the most important sentences from a document and you use them as the summary. Abstractive is a lot more complex. It is essentially you writing original new text based on what you've read. So extractive would be like copy pasting from Wikipedia articles, whereas abstractive would be that book report that you had to write in school that you didn't enjoy, that was like 3 pages long on this long book, and you were not allowed to copy paste from the book itself. You had to write all original text that was essentially a summary of the book. Now, you can imagine this technology in the hands of school children would reduce book reports fairly quickly to being relatively meaningless. So we've got our libraries loaded here. Let's load up our article. In this case, I'm using a transcript from Face the Nation, Dr. Scott Gottlieb's testimony or thing. We're going to use the T5 large model. Now, there are a huge number of different pre-trained libraries that you can use to do summarization. The T5 model is considered to be one of the best ones out there for that, besides Facebook BART. T5 is a Google product, I believe. And it is this massively huge text library that was pre-trained on a huge corpus of text, and Google has released it as open source. And what it essentially does is it helps the software to write by having those billions of examples of other writing. It's going to create this abstract. So this will take a little bit longer here. Now, what are my pipeline options here? Curiosity. If you're unfamiliar with this system, this is Google's Collab, I should say, and this is an environment that you or anybody is allowed to use for free for up to 12 hours to essentially test out your code. This kind of software is the sort of thing that you build a piece at a time. It's like assembling the components for a dish you're going to cook, right? Because this obviously is not exactly the world's most friendly interface, right? Jupyter Notebook is not exactly for the non-technical to use, and you would want something that would be a little more robust for the ability to use by an end user, or have it all be behind the scenes and just deliver the outputs. So what you would want to do in a project like this is use an environment like Collab to build the core, to build the engine, if you will. And then once you've got working code, then you would export it to a different environment, put a user interface on it, and probably do fancy web-based apps. A lot of companies are going this route because this is a really powerful set of tools. But as you can see, even using Google's hardware, because we're using a Collab's GPU environment, this is a very nice. It's like getting to borrow and drive somebody's like fancy sports car, right? You can't keep it, but you can take it for a test drive. And even here, let's see what we got from the summary. You're still going to run into. So this is interesting. Hospitalizations nationally are flat. They're not going down. The actually generated, you can tell it was generated from like mainstream media news because this is not who is speaking. If we carry this infection into the fall, it's not like we're going to keep at the kinds of levels he says. We need to look at ways to get higher quality masks into the hands of senior citizens. Okay, all of that is factually correct except the doctor's name. Not bad. What if we change this to a larger model? Let's try moving it up to that. And let's try making the summary a little bit longer. Each model that we configure and run, you can see the file sizes just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger, because that's what these things are, essentially just massive libraries. What would you use this for? Well, in this case, I'm taking a radio transcript, a TV transcript, and trying to come up with a summary. If you were to build software around this, you could, for example, transcribe or extract the transcript from, say, a YouTube channel. And you know the descriptions that are in YouTube channels. You could make a tool that would automate the writing of descriptions for your YouTube channel for those videos, so that it would be coherent, right? It would make sense. You would use this for summarizing blog posts to try and get a blog post to make that excerpt more useful. Because a lot of the times what people will do is they'll set the excerpt function in like WordPress to the first paragraph of the post, but that doesn't really summarize the post. I mean, it can, depending on if that's the style you write in. But if you were to instead use a machine to automatically summarize the contents of the post in an abstract way, you could have a much better short summary. Now, the downside of that is if you did that, then people might not read your blog post because the summary was so good they didn't need to read it. But I'm looking at this for a couple of different use cases, one of which is, can we summarize larger pieces of text? So this interview, I think, is, well, let's check to see how large it is. 1,000 words, 5,757 characters is how long this particular interview is. And we boiled it down to about 300 characters, give or take. So that's not bad. All right, that's a pretty substantial savings. Let's see how we're doing here. Wow. It's going to be a while. Other things you can do as summarization tool tasks would be being able to summarize emails. If you get a lot of like people mailing you books, practically, summarizing discussion forums would be helpful to be able to see like the longer posts to get a sense of the essence of those topics without having to read the whole thing. Even stuff like summarizing news articles. I think there's a case to be made for being able to write better like social media posts, right? So if you could, instead of having to just make stuff up or having to read every article you share, what if you did an abstractive summarization of a blog post before you shared it, and then you could share that summary and get coherent social media posts. That would save a social media manager a whole lot of time and still get the posts mostly correct. Now, if you're sharing content that deals in sensitive matters of some kind, you might not want to do that, right? Because there's the possibility that the machine will write something that you didn't want it to. But for, like, if you're say a B2B company and you're blogging about, or you're sharing content about like server appliances, the risk of a summarizer writing something like highly inflammatory is pretty low. If you're ingesting a paper that contains, information about firewalls and BGP4 routing protocols and all these things, it's not going to come up with something completely out of the wild and say like, vaccines cause autism or something, right? It's just not going to pull something like that out of the text you've trained it on to summarize. It will, as you saw with the first example, it can come up with something that is slightly factually incorrect. We're going to try this larger model and see if it generates a better result. But summarization's a really powerful tool, especially when it comes to SEO. So with SEO, you're looking for your session crashed. Awesome. All right, so apparently that 3 billion parameter model is not the one to use here. Your session crashed after using all the available RAM. All right, so we're just going to stick with the T5 large model here and reload everything. All right, well, we know that if we were to deploy this live, we would need more resources than Collab gives you, which, again, is totally fine. At least we have a sense of how it's going to go now. So, as I was saying, with SEO, one of the things that you're looking for is originality, right? Original text, but still text that hits all the major points. Now, if you were to take a massive, like 5,000 word blog post and summarize it in like a weekly roundup, that might be useful, right? If you take in 5 or 6 different industry leading blog posts and you summarize them in an abstractive way so that you're not just copy pasting the text, you're not going to infringe on the original author's copy, and it will be unique to you because you've built it on a model like this, but it would still have a lot of the keywords. You could get some pretty substantial benefit out of it. So those are some things to think about with summarization as we play with these tools and see if we can get them to spit out interesting results. If you're dabbling with this, I would love to know what you're doing. I'd love to hear from you. If you want to join the Slack group for stuff like this, go to trustinsights.ai/analytics for marketers. That's our Slack group. And we'd love to hear how you're experimenting with summarization and natural language processing. As always, subscribe to the YouTube channel and the newsletter. We'll talk to you soon. Take care. Want help solving your company's data, analytics, and digital marketing problems? Visit trustinsights.ai today and let us know how we can help you.